first off, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. For those who may be watching this who aren't familiar yet, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself and your team?
Sure. Yeah, I've been in the industry since 2009, straight out of college, right into the bottom of the real estate market.
Perfect time.
Built a team after a couple of years, and then opened an independent brokerage in 2015. Fast forward, we came to EXP in 2023, and we'd been on a small, I guess, kind of market-based pricing Zillow plan, probably from 2018 to that 2023 mark, and then they really started talking in theory about what Flex would be like. And so I think we were fairly early adopters, I think, for our market, just seeing the writing on the wall that, one, I'm a fan of eliminating that upfront overhead, especially as we're growing a team and you're feeding a lot of people. It made sense, to me on that end. Secondarily, you could see that Flex was, Zillow was going to be pushing the Flex because it was probably also more profitable for them long term. And so that was kind of our reason of jumping into it, is like, I've never wanted it to be our entire business. It's actually always been probably at tip top 30 to 35% of our kind of overall production. But, and that's just a business decision to make sure we're still training agents to feed themselves and grow them where Flex can be a benefit if they need it early. And then, with the goal of being able to have choices at some point in the future. And so I run a team. We've got 35, agents or so. About 18 of them are on our Flex team. That Flex is on or off because metrics change, direction changes, markets change, and so we're constantly, we're trying to recruit new talent to the Flex team, but also some of our top agents move on because they've, they can stand on their own 2 feet and don't want that anymore. So there's a constant relearning process in this, and that's kind of what I've uncovered, and that's why this, I think, is so helpful that EXP's, starting to do that, because nothing's ever the same and hasn't been since we've been with Zillow.
Interesting. How long have you been Flex?
We've been Flex for probably 3.5 years now.
Okay. And you said you got 30 plus agents. I think, did you say 35?
35 currently, yeah.
35. And so roughly half of them are on the Flex team.
Correct.
Are they, what market are you in, or markets are you in?
We're in Orlando, really Central Florida. We have a small sliver of our team down in like Palm Beach Gardens area. So we do get a handful of Flex leads down there as well, and trying to grow that one as we speak. But that's been a little more challenging, to start to grow an area without having a bigger presence there.
Is Palm Beach Gardens down by Palm Beach, I'm assuming?
Correct. Yep.
So that's pretty geographically removed from where, from
2.5 hours.
Have they, what I see in a lot of Flex teams is a kind of a life cycle of agent in the Zillow arena. And that is newer agents, as you say, typically they get metered a little bit. A lot of team leaders do what they call 5-5-10, which is give you 5 leads, pause. Let's see how you do. Give you 5 more, pause. Are you doing that, by the way?
Yeah, well, we do. We rotate. We split our team in half, and we rotate week after week. And so they get a pause week. And so, there's challenges with that too, because every week's not created the same. So we'll have a week where a handful of highly sought after listings hit the market, and the leads are plentiful. And then you'll have weeks where it's just really quiet, seemingly quiet across 10 people or however many are on that week. But it has given our team the freedom. What we were trying to manage for them was the stress of not being able to miss a phone call, because that's it's part of the business, but it's an unhealthy challenge at times too, when you feel and then we were just feeling that for them, like we'd get the stories of people running out of church, or like dinner time, and it's like that's not what we want. We can't control it. But if you could know that this week you're not going to have to deal with that, and this next week you're going to be on, it made it a little more manageable, for some of the agents we really wanted to be on that maybe otherwise would have chosen not to. They said, okay, I can buy into some weeks where I'm ready to go. I'm planning my week around keeping it available to be able to run out and do showings, right? Because that's the other piece of it. It's not just taking the call. It's what do you do after the call? And so, we track those calls too. You track the call logs and you can see who's picking it up and choosing not to go because maybe it's a little further away. It's a quick showing, and so the cherry picking was a real challenge to come over early, to overcome, because you find out who's being very selective with the leads they're taking, and it really just doesn't work. The model doesn't work if half your team's operating that way. So fighting through that, giving them freedom to, be on and off was helpful for us.
When you mentioned earlier about cherry picking, and it sounded like you made some moves to mitigate against that. Is that right? Did you do that, and what did you do? So,
just called it out.
There you go.
They didn't. It's easy for them to think, hey, So one would be specific, like the real-time tours. The real-time tours are different than the live call.
Yeah.
And Zillow had even given us like, hey, we're not really going to grade you on the real-time tours if you can't accept it. That's not going to be a big factor of your metrics. BS, it's all a factor of the metrics. And for us as well, like that's meat on the bone that we are, if you can't take it, we need to make sure somebody can take it. And so that's where I would rather, our agents who are on, although it's not ideal in the sense of we want the least amount of handoffs possible, I would rather them accept the real-time tour and find an agent who is super well equipped and has the capacity to go handle that showing. So, so they would be looking at it and we'd see them pull it up. And we've got agents who we'd find that had, over the course of 90 days, 180 real-time tour requests and, single digit, acceptance. Unacceptable, right? And so, until you start to call out the fact that, hey, we see it all, right? We can tell everything that's happening in real time, and these aren't one-offs. These are this is kind of exposing where we're, leaving opportunities on the table. Why are we declining them? Is it because location? Let's fix your zip codes. Is it because of price point? Let's have that conversation as well. Or is it just you're never available so, and I think when you look at metrics across the board, and this is what a lot of agents, I think, just generally don't understand is like, there's always going to be failure rate in terms of not being able to accept. Like if you look at macro market metrics on the same thing, there's a lot of people that, they wanted to see it 10 minutes from now. Like very few people can do that. Some people aren't even 10 minutes from the showing, right? So there's going to be that natural, but how many do you have control over that you can accept and then either distribute or handle yourself? And so same thing with calls. Like if you're answering constantly, or if you're picking up but not answering, that's a problem. Like, are you looking at the property and saying, too busy for that? That's not who we want on our team. So, really just calling that out and making it known that, yes, we don't control the specifics of all of these opportunities, but we've got to make sure we're taking advantage of what's in front of us, because it may not always be right. Like things change. We've seen, like I said, we've seen this year where we've had months of almost 10x what we're seeing right now. So, like things are always changing. We got to take advantage of those opportunities when they're in front of us.
So when you talked about the huddles, and I'm sorry, did you say you do those twice a week?
A month. Yeah, twice a month.
I'm sorry. And then what about your regular cadence of conversations, coaching, meetings, trainings? Are you doing, aside from those two huddles? And by the way, how long were those huddles? Did you say?
An hour.
About an hour.
Okay. An hour.
And then are you doing other meetings?
Yes. Sometimes they take on a life of their own and extend, and we leave kind of some space for that. We do team meetings every Tuesday. One of them's in person, the rest are virtual. And so the goal of that, and sometimes a lot of these topics, get brought up because the thing I try and do is blend the things that overlap, right? So as we learn things that are working from Zillow, like it is a training ground to see, like the more reps you get, the more you see, wow, this really does work, on average to go for the full fledged versus, and so that stuff comes and we're still talking about a lot of the same things, right? So having people in a position to connect the dots between what you're learning on our team meeting and the fact that it still applies to Zillow or vice versa, is super helpful. So we do those every Tuesday. And one of the things we do on that has been a great move. We do 2 specific meetings on cadence of Tuesdays. We do a mock appointments meeting. And so we will have one of our agents, and typically there are agents that are in Zillow because I can push them a little more to raise their hand and volunteer, do a buyer meeting, do a driveway talk, or a couple of them to do it live for somebody else, because those are also great opportunities for people to say, man, why do you do it that way? Yeah. And if you have no defense mechanism or understanding of why you do it that way, maybe you've never considered it. And we expose little things like that all the time. That's like, I do that way because it's how I learned, or no, I do it that way because I've tried it every other way. This is the only way that gets this kind of result. And it causes other people to give both critical feedback and positive feedback, on how we go through our appointment process. And so that's been another kind of fun. And sometimes we'll do those like just a showing. We've done like a kind of almost at our building, like you're at the front door going in, what do you do next? And so just as a kind of a training ground for our agents, especially the new ones, seeing how more experienced agents actually do it, has gotten just great feedback. So we try to do that on a monthly basis. Because it's been I've always had a challenge creating a cadence for shadowing. We do it as much as we can. Like I love if someone can go to somebody with a showing, but just think about it. I mean, it's a real challenge that you got to have somebody who's willing to let somebody come along with them, which most of them are, alert them, and they've got to be available. Right. And so like, in terms of like our real, like that's kind of we've kind of moved that to like, it's a big plus category if you can figure that out. The agents that get the most of that are the ones that are new. They come to the office every day and they sit here and they do all their work here. And so we encourage that early, because that's the one that the agents are like, hey, I'm running out to a showing, you want to go. Without that, it almost never happens. And so same thing with listing appointments, same thing with, kind of being there and listening to agents live phone calls. You've just kind of got to be here. But so the mock appointments has been the next best thing to actually seeing something in real time.
And it's pedestrian. And it's repetitive, by the way, because we did that a lot.
All the time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Again, these were weekly calls. And at the beginning of the month is when the numbers came out. And we usually had that dialogue, the first call of the month. And then it was going to, okay, how are these people getting their 40? Okay, then those people who are getting their 40, how are they? And what's interesting is those numbers that I just gave you, we only focused on appointments until we got to about 40. Right. We talked about the others, but really the focus was on 40 until we got close to that. Once we got close to that, then we started talking about 40 to 10. How do you do that? And by the way, once we started getting around 10, then we started talking about 10 to 5. How do you do that? And really, really focusing there. And it was a crawl in, walk, then run strategy. I got to jump to another call. I'm curious hearing that, because I've been talking to so many Zillow Flex teams, and I think if they understood how to have those kinds of dialogues, it might make a difference. And be honest, please, because I don't want to advocate for something that nobody's going to do. Hearing that, what's your blink on that kind of process?
Yeah, I mean, I'm everything that can be simple and repeated. I think that's been the challenge. Some of the challenges, one, a moving target, but two, too much of a dashboard. It's overwhelming for people and doesn't move the needle. So Yeah, I love the internal competition. It'd be fun to see it kind of broadly across some other EXP teams as well, where we can compete, kind of like our leaderboard, compete there as well as a team, and then internally,
I love that idea.
Get everybody. So yeah, it'd be fun to see. Maybe we're kind of logging our own stuff, and it would be nice to see it adjusted for like team size as well, because that's sometimes when we see.
Yeah.
Like I know in our local leaderboard, there's a team that's always at the top, and it's two ladies that run around like chickens with their heads cut off. And I'm like, I glean nothing from what they're doing. They're just highly effective. There's two of them. It's a simple, like, how do you scale that to 20 or 30, right? And so it would be nice to see some of, where we could kind of see how we really are doing in our market, regardless of market, but just compared to other teams, and have some things to compete on.
I think that's a great idea, by the way. Thank you. All right. Hey, thanks for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. You're going to have to let me know how I can repay the favor. Okay.
I love it. Thanks so much.